Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the story of a man who was a total paradox. He literally built the foundations of Israel's religious state and then turned around and became its sharpest critic. We're talking about one of the most influential religious thinkers of his time, and yet there's a good chance you've never heard his name, Rabbi Shaul Israeli. So let's figure out why.
Okay, so to really get a sense of his stature, you just have to hear this one thing. Rabbi Eliashiv, who was, a true giant of Jewish law, once said that there was only one person who could make him second-guess a legal ruling he'd made, and that person was Rabbi Shaul. I mean, that's not just respect, that's a whole other level. We're talking about reverence from the absolute top of the rabbinic world.
So that brings us back to the big question, right? If he was that important, why isn't he a household name? Well, the simple answer is he didn't want to be. He actively stayed out of the spotlight. So to really grasp his impact, you can't just look at the headlines. No, you've got to dig way deeper, right into the foundations of the State of Israel.
All right, so let's get into his story. And, it doesn't start where you'd expect, like some grand, dusty study hall. Nope, it starts in the muddy fields of a pioneering village. This was a place where, for the first time in centuries, ancient religious theory was literally colliding with the hard-packed dirt of a brand new nation.
I mean, his early life was just pure drama, a total story of survival. He was born right in the middle of the Communist Revolution. He had to study Torah in secret. He even watched his own father get arrested just for teaching. And then he makes this incredible escape, on foot across a frozen river to get to freedom. But here's the thing. When he finally gets to Palestine, he doesn't arrive as a broken refugee. He arrives as a top-tier scholar ready to build something new.
So he lands in this village, Kar HaRu'ah, and suddenly he's in this whole new world. All these ancient Jewish laws about farming, laws that had been pretty much just theory for 2,000 years while Jews were in exile, they were suddenly real, urgent problems. Like, how do you actually observe a sabbatical year when you have a modern economy to run? What are the rules for new kinds of grafting techniques? These weren't just questions for a book anymore, they were real-life challenges.
And this is where you really see his unique genius shine. He wasn't some academic stuck in an ivory tower. His whole method was about getting his boots dirty. He'd literally go out, walk the fields, and just listen. He'd listen to the farmers, the people of the fields, and then he'd take their real-world knowledge and fuse it with his incredible mastery of the ancient texts and with insights from modern science. And the result, he came up with solutions that weren't just brilliant on paper, they actually worked.
So he develops this amazing ground-up approach in the fields, right? And what's incredible is how he then scaled it up. He took that exact same method, forged in the dirt, and applied it to the entire nation. He started thinking about the very idea of a modern Jewish state, and in doing so, he became one of the key architects of the whole infrastructure of religious Zionism.
He was laser-focused on what was really the central question for religious Zionism. How on earth can an ancient legal code, the Torah, actually guide a modern, sovereign, and democratic state? For centuries this was just a dream, a theoretical idea, but now it was real, and it was full of incredibly complex problems. Rabbi Israeli just dove right in. He tackled it head-on, started a journal, wrote these foundational books, like Amud HaYemini, which means the righteous pillar, to basically lay out a practical blueprint.
And look, he didn't just write about this stuff from a distance. He was truly in the trenches, building it all from the ground up. He co-founded the main rabbinic group for his movement, he served on the highest rabbinic court in the entire country, he even helped draft the original prayer for Israel's Independence Day. He was a completely hands-on architect of the state's religious identity.
Okay, so this is where we get to the real paradox of his life, the heart of the story. The same man who poured his entire life into building the system, the ultimate insider. He's the one who becomes its fiercest, most principled critic from the inside.
Let's go back. When he helped start that rabbinic council, his vision for it was crystal clear. It was supposed to be a spiritual compass, right? A group guided by pure Torah principles, whose job was to advise the movement's political leaders. The whole point was to make sure that ideology always came before politics.
But then, fast forward 25 years, he stands up in front of that very same group and says he is full of shame and humiliation. In his eyes, that pure ideology was gone. It had been replaced by what he called askanut, which is basically just political horse trading, wheel and dealing. He straight up accused his colleagues of making decisions based on what was politically convenient, not on what was right. And then he just walked away, resigned.
This quote just says it all. You can feel his pain.
He felt that the original soul of the movement, that pioneering spirit, was gone. It had been burned out, sacrificed for what? An empty shell of political power, just for the sake of chasing votes.
And his frustration, it really came from a specific ideal he had. See, he rejected the two models he saw around him. On the one hand, you had the model where the politician is just a puppet for the rabbi. He rejected that. On the other hand, you had the idea of a total separation of religion and politics. He rejected that too. He was pushing for a third way, a real partnership. In his ideal world, the politician brings the facts, the reality on the ground, and the rabbi provides the framework, the Torah thought process, and they figure it out together. So you can imagine how crushed he was to see that nuanced idea just get thrown out the window.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing, not by a long shot. Almost 20 years after that first resignation, he did it again. This time, he walked away from the chief rabbinic council. We're talking a major national institution here, because he saw political meddling in the election of rabbis. It was the ultimate statement, right? For him, principle was always more important than holding a position.
So you might be thinking his legacy is all about protest and walking away. But what's his lasting impact? Well, his true legacy isn't really about what he walked away from. It's about what he so carefully built and left behind for everyone who came after him.
Just think about this number for a second. 10%. Today, 1 out of every 10 rabbinic judges in Israel is a graduate of Eretz Hemda. That's the elite institute that Rabbi Israeli founded late in his life. I mean, that's a staggering, direct, living legacy that's literally embedded inside the country's legal system today.
And his influence, it just radiates out in so many ways. First, his books. These aren't just sitting on a shelf collecting dust, they're the essential textbooks still being studied today on these key issues. Then there are his students, thousands of them, who are now leaders, rabbis, and teachers shaping the next generation. And of course, the institutions he built, like Eretz Hemda, which are still powerful forces shaping Israeli society.
So, in the end, his life doesn't really give us any easy answers to that huge question about power and ideals. What it does give us is a powerful, lifelong masterclass in the struggle itself. He shows us what it looks like to walk a path of integrity, to try and build a better world while fiercely, stubbornly refusing to lose your soul along the way.